Suppressors have become more popular over the past couple of years, and for a good reason. Suppressors have some great benefits, but do those benefits outweigh the negatives? We wanted to make this video to talk about all things suppressors and to spread the word around and hopefully convince some of you, internet LARPers, that you should buy and use suppressors. Believe it or not, suppressors or silencers don't make guns silent. Unlike what movies and video games and popular media might have you believe, you can't walk through an airport having a gunfight without anyone noticing. I'm looking at you, John Wick. Obvious, I know, but some people get their knowledge of guns from movies and video games. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's just a lot of fallacies. There are two main styles of suppressors. This includes the traditional baffled suppressor and the flow-through suppressor. A baffled can has a series of baffles that are almost like little washers. We'll have a diagram here so you can see that. And they act to just trap gas within the suppressor. The flow-through can design is something somewhat new. Not really that new, but somewhat new. And it uses a sort of spiral design to capture gas and expel it out of the front of the suppressor. The flow-through can design is more popular, I would say, with left-handed people, as it allows the trapped gas to exit through the front of the suppressor rather than being pushed back through the system and into the face of the shooter. Suppressors do more than just quiet your gun. And keep in mind that this is all of this information is caliber, gun, suppressor dependent. Even ammunition dependent a lot of times. You'll hear us talk about subsonic and supersonic ammo in this video, and just understand that supersonic is ammo that is going fast enough to break the sound barrier. Subsonic is the opposite. It is a bullet that is going slow enough to not break the sound barrier. That's very important for suppression because a lot of the sound and the sort of crack that you hear from a rifle shooting, a lot of that sound is not only the explosion that's contained right next to your face inside of metal, but it's also the sound of the bullet breaking the sound barrier as it exits the rifle or pistol and goes downrange. With that being said, calibers like 5.56 or 5.45, you will never be able to make hearing safe just because of the way that the round works. A can isn't going to slow it down enough to make it not break the sound barrier, so it is still going to be loud, but it's going to be less loud. There are some calibers that you can make quiet enough to shoot without hearing protection. Those calibers are going to be sort of heavier calibers, slower moving calibers naturally. So these like 45, 308, 300 blackout, and even 22 long rifle comes with different super and subsonic loads that will eliminate a lot of that sound. So should you buy, use, and own a suppressor? If you have an 8-ring like me and you're already thinking about clicking off of this video, the too long didn't read is yes, you should. But if you're here for some more information, you can stick around for the pros and cons that we'll discuss now. And keep in mind, again, all of this is ammo, gun, and suppressor dependent, but the tenets still remain the same. So the pros. Suppressors lower the decibel level. Even if it's not to a hearing safe level, it still takes off a certain number of decibels from the sound of the actual gunshot, which can be very beneficial still. Depending on the suppressor you get, you can also have a reduce in muzzle flash, and that reduction is going to be based on the suppressor. A reduce in muzzle flash is incredibly important, especially at night, low light scenarios, and under night vision. Having less muzzle flash can be incredibly beneficial. Another large upside of suppressors is the reduction in concussion. Taking that concussion off makes the gun a lot more pleasant to shoot. Maybe not necessarily if you're outside, but if you're at an indoor range or you're just shooting in an enclosed area, regardless, it can take off a lot of the harshness of the gun going off. Not to mention people at the range, whenever you're shooting with them, which I'm hoping you are training with other people, but people you're shooting with, sometimes they're not super fond of standing next to you while there's a lot of concussion happening, and so a suppressor can help to tame that for not only yourself in an enclosed area, but also for other people around you. But it's not all positives. There are some negatives to suppressor usage. We'll talk about the biggest problem with suppressor ownership after these sort of smaller ones. The first is weight, and I guess also length. Suppressors are metal. I mean, you're attaching a metal pretty much cylinder to the end of your gun. Regardless of what suppressor you get, it is going to be adding weight. Now, I don't think that this is a Surefire RC2. This doesn't add a ton of weight and it doesn't add a ton of length to my gun, but it still is adding weight and it still is adding length. That is a con. It's going to add weight. It's going to add length to your gun as well. Another downside to suppressors is you can have a point of aim shift. This means that you'll have one 0 with your suppressor off and you'll have another 0 with your suppressor on. To get around that, I personally just leave this suppressor on the one AR that I'm going to be using it on. And that's really just about it. But honestly, the Surefire RC2 doesn't see that big of a change in my point of impact, so I don't worry about it too much regardless. Another possible issue with using a suppressor is the added back pressure to your gun. So in a traditional baffled can such as this one, that gas is getting trapped inside of the suppressor and the gas has got to go somewhere. Some of it does escape out the front, but a lot of it will also escape from going back the way it came. So either through your gas system or just through the functioning of the gun, period. So the added back pressure means that there's going to be more wear and tear on your internal components. Whether or not that's going to be a huge effect really depends on the gun you're using, the caliber you're using, and again, the suppressor you're using. This, like I said, is a baffled can, so there's going to be more back pressure built up. Means there's going to be more gas going back through the system. And finally, the biggest con with these guys is the ATF. Getting a suppressor isn't illegal, but they sure as hell try to make it as hard as possible for you to get. Currently, the wait time is about 8 to 9 months. I think I waited 8 months for this, and this is for E-Form 4s as well, not the old paper way. So that is something to be aware of also. I genuinely believe that whenever you submit a Form 4 to the ATF, they just draw out of a hat and open a piece of paper. It has a random number on it, and that's how many months you have to wait. Some people get their suppressors back in as little as 90 days. Some people, like me, have to wait 8 or 9 months. Some people, like Connor, have to wait 12, 13 months. It really just is dependent. And that's honestly one of the biggest downsides, if not the biggest downside. Everything else is pretty easy. I mean, you're adding a little bit of weight. Just go to the gym more, I guess, or get a smaller suppressor. You're adding more back pressure, buy some additional springs or an extra bolt carrier group a little earlier, whatever. That stuff isn't a big deal, but the wait time is what is a killer. And of course, since these are regulated more heavily, the cost of a suppressor is a lot more expensive than what you would expect. I honestly think that the benefits of using a suppressor far outweigh the negative downside of the ATF. And since it does take a little bit of time, I want to offer a little bit of advice here. I'm not a suppressor aficionado, I only have this one, but Connor does have some and we've talked about it quite a bit. I would recommend that you find a suppressor that will fit multiple different guns or multiple different calibers. But if you want something that's more versatile so that you can buy one and attach it to multiple different guns whenever you feel like it, I would keep that in mind as well. So, what suppressors are we using in this video? If you're curious, well, obviously we have the Surefire SOCOM RC2 suppressor, this guy right here. We're also using the CGS Helios, which is a really cool can. It offers 2 different end plates, so you'll have a flow-through one and a traditional sort of baffle end plate. We are also using a HuxWrx OSS can, traditional flow-through can. So again, I think everyone should buy a suppressor. They're expensive, it's time-consuming, I agree, but I don't know. Maybe, I personally think that the benefits far outweigh the negative downsides of having to go through the ATF to get one of these. And yes, this is the only way that you're going to be able to get this. But yeah, anyways, this is by no means a comprehensive guide to suppressor usage. That video is going to come later after we have much more experience with these suppressors. I've had this for about 3 months. Connor has had his for a while, but still we want to get more involved with suppressors before we make a comprehensive guide on suppressor usage. So those videos will be coming up. Hopefully we were able to convince some of you guys, you internet LARPers, to buy one of these cans if you haven't already. So go ahead and put in the comments what kind of can you're interested in getting. And of course, as always, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video.